Hello and welcome to this session. In this session, we are going to learn how to do data-driven testing using Excel files. And in this particular session, I'm going to show you how you can create a Excel file reading utility in Java so that you can use it for any of your Excel reading purposes in the REST assured framework or any framework. So this is going to be very easy and very interesting. And do not worry if you have no prior knowledge on this topic. I will go step by step from scratch and we will learn how to add Excel Maven libraries in our project, how to create functions to read data from Excel, and then how to read data from both the formats of Excel, that is xlsx and xls workbooks. So let's get started. And step number one is we are going to add Maven dependency for Excel reading and writing. So we have to add a library in our Maven project. So here this is the project. So in my Eclipse we have created this rest assured project in the earlier sessions. So I will go here and expand the project and go to pom.xml file, and here in the pom.xml file I'm going to add a dependency or a library so that I can work with Excel files. If I go to Maven central repository, and here we are going to go with Apache POI, which is a very good and common and widely used Excel library. So if I search for Apache POI, you can see we have Apache POI here and then OOXML. So many versions are here. I will be using OpenOffice XML, that is OOXML. So I will go and click here and I'll go and get the latest version. You can get the latest stable version at the time of at your time. I'm getting this at the time of recording this video. So I will copy this and go to my pom.xml and paste it and save the project. So as you save, it will add the libraries. Also, I will just remove this comment. I will press Ctrl D to remove this line, and to correct the indentation I will select everything with Ctrl A and say Ctrl I to correct the indentation. So now if I go to my library folder, Maven dependencies, here I should have the POI libraries. So you can see Apache POI libraries are here. So now the Apache POI libraries are added. So this was step number one. And now step number two is create a folder and add Excel file and create data in the file. Now this particular session I am going to create a separate utility for reading and writing Excel files, and this utility you will be able to use in any of your Java projects, not just rest assured, but if you are having a Selenium Java project or any Java project, you can use that. So now I will be creating an Excel file. So what I'm going to do is first I will create a folder in my project. Now you can create the file anywhere on your system, but it is always good to keep the all the resources within the project. So I'm going to do a right click on the project, go to new and create a folder first, and I will name this as data. You can name it anything, and I will say finish. Now here I will go to this data folder. The data folder is created here. You can see I will go to this folder location physically on the system. So I will right click, go to properties, and here I will click on this icon which will open the project folder, and I will go inside data. So this is the folder here. Here I am going to create a new Excel file. Now if you have Microsoft Office installed on your system, then you can create a new Excel file in Microsoft Office Excel. Just in case you do not have Microsoft Office, you can go and check a free option here. If you just go to Google and search for WPS Office. So this is a very good software, and here you can see this is a free and open office, and you can get it for Windows, Mac, and everything is available here. So this is a free option and it works with Microsoft Office, and it will create exactly the same documents and with same extensions that we have in Microsoft Office. In fact, you can also use your existing Microsoft Office files with OpenOffice or WPS Office. So you can get this in case you do not have Microsoft Office. Now in my case also I have installed it. So I will go to my data folder and do a right click and say new, and you can see we have two options here. If I go to new, we have option for XLS worksheet and xlsx worksheet. So the latest format is xlsx. I will show you both these formats, how you can work with both. For now, let me just create a xlsx format and I will name this as test data, and I will open the file. So this is the file. Now here I'm going to create some data. So let me very quickly create some data for our testing. I will say, let us say this is first name, this is last name, and let us say this is subject ID, and I will give some data here. I will say this is Graham Bell and the subject ID is 1, and I will say this is a second set of data, Henry Ford, and subject ID is 2, and that's it. I have created some very quick data and I will save this, and now I'll go back to my Eclipse. So we have done step number 1 and 2. Now step number 3 is we have to create a class and create functions to read data from Excel. Now we have to create a class, and then inside the class I will create functions to read data. So for that I'm going to go to my project and I will go to the src test java folder, and I'm going to create a new package. So I will do a right click here, go to new and go to package, and I will name this as utils. You can name it anything. So I will keep all the utility classes here. So I'm naming this as utils and say finish. And inside the utils package, I will again do a right click, new, and now I will create a class and I will name this as Excel utils. I will keep all the Excel functions here. So I'm naming it Excel utils. You can name it anything and say finish. So in this particular package, I will be keeping all the Excel reading writing classes, so that I will have a separate package, and this you can use anywhere in your Java projects. So here now I have got this Excel utils class. Let me expand it and let me also increase the font. I am pressing Ctrl and plus on my keyboard. So I hope this is fine. So here I'm going to create a function to first get the number of rows from the Excel. So I need to get how many rows are present. So in this case there are 3 rows. So I will create a function. I will say public void and say get row count, and now in this function I will say, so because I am using .xlsx format, so for that the class in Apache POI is xlsf workbook. So if you press Control spacebar on your keyboard, you can see I am getting this option from org Apache POI xlsf workbook. I will use this. Just in case you are using XLS format, the class you will use is HSSF workbook. So I will show you this later. For now, let me just continue with the latest format, and I can give any variable name and equals to new XSSF workbook. So this will get our workbook, but before we do that, we also have to provide the path of our Excel file here in the brackets. So for that I will say, I will just get the path in a string variable. I will say string excelPath equals to, now if you see here, in our case the Excel file is in the data folder and it is not yet shown here. I will have to refresh my project. I will do a right click and say refresh, and yes, you can see now, if I open my data folder, testdata.xlsx is here. You can also see one more entry, and that is because the file is currently open on the system. Once I close this file, you will not see this one. So we have the file here within the project. Now the good thing by having the file within the project is I can now directly say here, I can say here dot and forward slash, dot and forward slash, and the relative path, that is data and test data dot xlsx. So this is the relative path from the project location or the project folder. So I can directly give this, and then this Excel path I will provide it here in this bracket, and here I'm getting some error. So if I hover over the error, it is saying uh, I have unhandled exception, and therefore I will have to either add throws declaration or surround with try catch. So if I click surround with try catch, you can see it has surrounded it with a try catch block. Let me keep the try at the top, and this is exception handling. Do not worry about this. You can just also say throws exception here like this, and then you do not have to use try catch block. But for now I will use a try catch block. Just in case you want to get more information about this, you can go on my website automationstepbystep.com, and here let me quickly show you. Here if you scroll down, you will find under programming section, you will find we have a Java course here, and also we have a Selenium Java framework. Let me check and give you the links. So if you go here, let me see if we have exception handling, and yes, so we have exception handling tutorial here, so you can check here, or even if you go to the Selenium Java playlist, here also we have a tutorial on exception handling. So how do we use try catch and do exception handling? This is just for reference. If you want, you can check that. And for now I will use a try catch block, and let me catch any exception here. I will say exception exp, and inside the catch block I will print the, I will say syso and control spacebar to complete system.out.println, and I will say exp.getMessage, and I can also say exp.getCause, and I can also print the stack trace. I will say exp.print stack trace. All right. Okay, so now we have added our workbook and also given the path. Now in case you want, you can also give a complete absolute path if you have your Excel at any other location on your system. But in that case, if you change the location of your project or take your project to any other system, then the path will break. So it is always recommended to get a relative path. And just in case this way, putting a dot and the relative path does not work for you, there is another way you can get the path of your project. So for that you can say system dot get property, and the property name is user.dir, and this will give you the location of the project folder. And let me save it into a string project directory, and if I print it, if I just say project directory here, and let us see, to run this particular function from this same class, I will have to call it from a main method. So I will create a main function. I will say main, control spacebar on the keyboard and click here. So it has auto generated the main method, and because main is static, I will also have to make this function as static so that it can be called from the main method. And here I will say get row count, control spacebar to autocomplete. And if I now run this, I will say right click, run as Java application, and you can see it is giving me the project path. And now I can just say here project path plus the rest of the path, and I have to remove the dot here. So this will also give me the project path. Sorry, this is project dir I have used here, so the same thing I will use here, and this will also work. However, in our case dot is working fine, so I will just say here dot, and I do not need this. So here we have created a variable for the workbook, and then I will also get the sheet. So I will say xlsx sheet, and if I press control spacebar, it is also coming from org apache poi, and I will give any variable name, let us say sheet. And here now I'm going to use this workbook variable. So I will say workbook dot get, and now you can see we have lots of options. We have get sheet by name, we have get sheet by index, and then get active sheet index, and so on. So here you can just give your sheet name. So in our case it is sheet 1, or you can also get the sheet by its index position. For example, this is the first sheet, so the index position is 0. So I will just get it by the first name. I will say here get sheet by name, and I will give the name of the sheet, that is sheet 1, and that's it. Now to get the row count, I can say sheet dot get, and here again you can see as I'm doing get, we are getting so many functions. All these are coming from Apache PY library, so you can do so many operations here. And to get the row count, I can say get last row num, or I can say get physical number of rows. This should work. So I'm using this, and let me store it into a integer variable. I will say int row count equals this, and then I can print the row count. I will say number of rows, and I will say row count here. And now if I run this function, it should give us the number of rows, and you can see it is printing number of rows is 3. So we have created a function to get the row count. So let me say create a function to get row count. Then step number 4 will be create a function to get data from Excel. So now we have to create a function to get data from Excel. So I will again create a function here. I will say public static and void, and say get cell data. You can name anything, and here I will use the same statements to get workbook and sheet, so this will remain same. Let me copy this from here and I will paste it here, and also I will copy the try catch block, so I do not have to manually add it again. So I have copied this statements to get the workbook and the sheet, and now from the sheet I just want to get the cell data. So for that I can say sheet dot get row. So there is a function get row, and I will give the row number. Now in our case, if I go to my Excel, so the first row which is at index position 0 has the headers, and the actual data starts from row number 2, and the index position of this row is 1. So it starts with index position 0 and 1. So I will say here get row num1, and then I will say get cell, and here I have to give the column number. I will say column number 0, and then I can say dot we have so many functions. I will say we have get boolean, get cached. Let me say get string cell value, and because it is getting a string cell value, I will store it into a string variable. I will say string value equals this, and then I can print it. I will say syso control spacebar to autocomplete, and I will just print the this value here that I have stored in this variable. So that's it. I can save it, and let me run and check. If I run this, so I have not yet called it from the main method, so I have to call this function. Now this main method I have created just for calling the functions and checking they are working fine. Ultimately we will be calling this from a different class, so I will remove the main function after we have completed our functions. So I will say get cell data here and run it, and you can see I am getting the value Graham, which is in the first row and first column. Now let me also check what if I have a numerical data. If I go to my Excel, you can see in column number 3rd or column with index position 2 we have numerical data. If I have to get this, let us see what I have to do. If I change cell number or get column index to 2, let us see the output now. I will run this again, and here you can see we are getting an exception. It is saying cannot get a string value for a numeric cell, and therefore we have an exception. This was a numeric cell, so for that I will either have to use, I will say here instead of get string value I will say get numeric cell value, and then I will have to store it into a numeric data type. Now if I use int, I'm still getting a error here because it is not returning value of type string, it is returning value of for type double. So if I go to the get numeric cell value function, you can see here it is returns a double type. So now if I run this, you can see I am getting the output. However, I am getting it into a decimal form, which I do not want. I just want the value as it is in my Excel file. So for that, now either I can do some typecasting here, but that will be a tricky and a longer process. A easy and straightforward way is I can say here I can use a data formatter. I will say data formatter. If I press Control spacebar, you can see this data formatter is again coming from org Apache PY. I will use this and give some variable name. Let us say formatter equals new data formatter, and then using the variable that is formatter, I can say dot format cell value, and here I will give the location that is sheet dot get row and get cell. I am just going to copy this and put it inside the brackets here, and that's it. Now I have to store it into a variable. Now this particular statement can get any value as it is, whether it is a string or a number or anything. So for that I will use a object data type instead of string or int. I will use a object data type so that it can store any kind of data. I'm saying object and the value, and then I will be printing out the value here. So let us check this. If I run this now, I'm getting 1, which is fine. Let me also check a string value. If I say get row 1 and get cell 1, and if I run this now, I am also able to get a string value. So now it will get values as it is. Even if you have some decimal data, let us say if I have something like 2.0, something like this, and if I try this one, I will say get cell 3 here and run this, and you can see I'm getting the value as it is. So now this I can use for any kind of data, so this will work fine, and I do not need this. I will delete this and I will just be using this. So now I have created two functions for getting row count and then get cell data. Now step number 5 is create a constructor, and do not worry, I will show you how to do that and what it is. So I will create a constructor to get excelPath and sheetName. So constructor is a function which has the same name as the class name and does not have a return type. So let me show you. If I create a function without a return type and the name same as class name, like public, and use the same name as class name, and you can see I am not giving any return type like void or any data type, I am not giving that, and I will create this function. So this becomes a constructor for this class, and constructor will always be called whenever we instantiate a class or whenever we create an object of the class using the new keyword. And the reason we are doing this is we want to force the user that whenever you call this class, you have to provide us the Excel path, the location of the Excel, and the sheet name. So I will take these two parameters or arguments in the function argument. I will say Excel path and sheet name, and in a moment I will show you why exactly we need this. I will say sheet name, and then these things where I am creating a variable for the workbook and getting the sheet, this I will copy in the constructor function here, and here Excel path is already here, and sheet name I will remove the hard coded values and give sheet name here, and of course I will have to surround it with try catch. So I will just copy the catch block from here, and that's it. So I am doing this. Now whenever a object will be created for this class, it will ask for the Excel path and sheet name, and here I am setting the sheet name and the workbook. So I will make these variables workbook and sheet as static class variables so that they can be referred in any function of this class. I will go to the class level and keep this here and make this static. The same thing I will do with the sheet variable. I will remove from here and I will go to the class level and put it here and make it static, and now I can remove this from here and here as well. So now you can see workbook and sheet are now class variables, and the same thing I can do in the other functions. So now I do not need this, I do not need any of this because it is getting set in the constructor function. So I will remove these from here, and this is my only function. In fact, I can remove try catch as well from here, although it is a good practice to keep try catch, but let me just remove it and show you how clean the function is looking like. So the get cell data function is just a two-line function. Now we are creating a formatter and then getting the value with the formatter, and the same thing I will do with the get row count function. Now I do not need all these things. I will remove this and this as well, and you can see our get row count function is also actually a single statement. This is we are just using to print out, but this is the actual statement and this is the function get row count. So now you can see this is our entire class, how it looks like. Let me show you the complete class. So this is our entire class. So we have a constructor where we are taking the excelPath and the sheet name, and we are setting the workbook and sheet variables, which are class variables and static, so that it can be referred in any function. And then we are having a get cell data and get row count functions. I also can remove the main method now, because now I will be calling this from a different class. I use the main method only for demo and checking everything is working fine. So this is our class now. So now we have created the constructor. Now step number 6 is create a new class and call the Excel functions. So I will create a new class now. I will go to my utils package, do a right click, go to new, and now go to class, and I will name it anything. I will say Excel utils test and say finish. So this is our utils class now, and I will create a main method. I can say main and control spacebar and select main method, and here I will create a object for the Excel utils class. So I can say here Excel utils and control spacebar for auto completing, and any variable equals new Excel utils. And now you can see, as I'm creating the object, it is asking me to provide a excelPath and a sheet name, and this is because of the constructor we created. So the constructor we created here, we are taking excelPath and sheet name, two string arguments, and therefore whenever you will create an object or instantiate the class using the new keyword, it will always ask for these two variables. So we are in a way forcing the user to provide us these two variables, so that only after this the user will be able to use the functions. So let me create excelPath and sheet name string variables here. I will say string excelPath is, and I can just give the relative path data and test data dot xlsx, and then the sheet name is sheet1. So here, that's it. I will save, and now there is no error. And now using this variable or this object Excel, I can call the functions. I can say, you can see I'm getting the options. I can access the get row count function, and I can also access the get cell data function. So one thing that I forgot is, in the get cell data function we are still hard coding. So if I go back and check the get cell data function, so you can see we are still hard coding the row number and the column number, so that I should be taking it in the arguments. I will say int row num and int column number, and the same things I will be referring here, row num and column num, and I will save it. And now if I go back to the Excel utils test, you can see I'm getting an error, because now it is expecting the arguments here. So if I see, now it is expecting row num and column num. So I will give the row number here and the column number here, and now I can use it multiple times, as many times as I want, and I can actually also put this in a loop. For now, let me just call the first row or the data from the first row, and if I run this now, I can do a right click, run as Java application, and you can see it is getting all the data. Number of rows is 3, and it is getting all the data from the first row. So we have created a utility, and now this is common. I can use it anywhere. Now let me also show you, what if we have an XLS format, XLX format instead of the new format. So if I go to my testdata.xlsx, let me go here and I will save it. I will say save as, and I will change the format to this one, xls, and say save. So now if I go to my data folder, you can see now we also have this new file created with the older extension. So if I change this now, if I go and just change it like this here, and if I try to run this now, there will be an exception. If I run this, you can see there is an exception. So it is the format exception. So for that, I will change here, instead of xSSF, I will say it should be HSSF workbook. So this is what I should be using. And then here in the HSSF workbook, I cannot give an Excel path directly like this. And for that, what I'll have to do is, I will say, I will also have to import this. So let me check if it has imported or not. So yes, it has imported. So to get the workbook, I will say here, I will get the input file stream. So let me check input. So I can just comment this out first, so I can get the file stream. And here, let me see if I go outside this block and try to get this. Okay, so we have an input stream. Let me use this, and I will give any variable name and say new file input stream, and this is coming from, again, from Java IO file input stream. I will use this, and here I will give the Excel path, and here there is some error. So let me see. Yeah, I have to put this in the inside the try catch block or add a throws declaration. I will put this inside the try catch block here, and then I can say inside the here, okay, I have to change it here as well, that therefore that was the reason I have to change it to x, from x to h here, and I will also import the required classes. And now I can say here, I will say new PYFS file system, and then I will use the file variable here, and that's it. And the sheet already I have changed to HSSF sheet. So now if I go back and run this, you can see now it is working for the older format as well. So just in case you are using the older format, you will have to do these changes. So this is how you can create a Excel utility, and you can get data from Excel, and this is a common utility. You can use it anywhere. I hope this was useful for you. If you like the session, please hit the like button and also share it with others. And to receive all new videos from automation step by step, you can subscribe to the channel and also hit the bell icon so that you can keep receiving notifications. In case there is anything to be improved in this session, you can let me know in the comment section. Also let me know what you liked about this session, and I hope all this was very useful. Thank you for watching.